Welcome back everybody. So today we will be building the Seaside frame. As always, we'll be working on an 8x8 20x20 centimetres you can purchase from the range or Hobbycraft. You'll have to excuse the wind, it's absolutely gale force out there, but we have to carry on. So what you'll need to do is always take out your glass, collapse it so you will have your three pieces. We are going to be working on the back piece. Excuse all this, it just, when I put the design together, I just needed to know whether we needed this guide or not. So we're going to discuss that later on. So normally what we do is we place in our prints first. But this time round, we're going to paint the inner part of our frame first. Obviously this is bare wood, you might not want to paint yours. So obviously you can skip this step. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to paint the inside of this before we start with anything else. I did bring out some yellow. I wasn't quite sure with it being quite beachy, but I know obviously we're going to be doing some candy flosses and all that sort of stuff inside. So I am going to go for this pink. I've decided on the pink, so I'm going to stick with it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this acrylic paint that I got from the range, and I'm just going to paint just the inside. As always, you don't have to concentrate on this part or this part. So I'm just going to go ahead now and then obviously then we can let that dry while we carry on with the next piece. I'm just jumping in just to show you a little tip. I've not covered this before, so I just want to cover this. If you get yourself some kitchen towel and place your frame on the top, obviously we're not painting this part, so you can keep your finger on it, and then that way it doesn't get all over your worktop or anything like that, and you're not having to hold it and getting covered in paint. And then you can just paint around the edge like this. And then that'll obviously let that dry on your paper towel, and then you can peel that off once it's dry. Just pop that to the side. I'm going to let that dry. As you can see, I've got loads of different borders around here because we are going to build a frame with like a 3D effect. What I didn't want to do is glue everything down and then find that your frame is sort of like gone over from your shelf. So this is why you can see the marks. However, I've just gone back to the drawing board and I've designed something that's going to be a little bit easier for you to put together. So like I say, just ignore all this. Yours won't have any pen marks on it, and you do not need to put any pen marks on yours. So as always, I'll be working with the clear PVA glue. This has been the best glue that I have been using. Obviously you can use tacky glue like I always say in all the builds that we do. It's just a bit more harder to spread, and you don't want lumps obviously underneath your print. Along with the Mod Podge, again, it might bubble up your little cardstock, so stick with some, it doesn't have to be clear, just PVA glue. It's a lot easier to spread. So that's the glue I'll be using. So this is the first print you will need to find in your kit. Obviously yours you will have to cut out yourself, just like we've done on the previous kits. So you will have sort of like a white border, a rough border. And then you will just need to take your ruler and a craft knife and just run right the way along, just trimming that off. So I've already done mine. So now what I'm going to do is take my clear PVA glue, which I got from the works. I don't know whether I mentioned that earlier, but there we go. I've mentioned it again just in case. I'm going to line this print up to the top, right the way along. I have measured this more or less to fit, so there might be a little bit of excess. I don't think there will be on this part. So I'm going to take all my PVA glue to the back, place this on the top, lining it up like I say on the top, working all the way along this back piece, and then gluing that down there. Once that is dried and into place, we are now going to go back to the inner part which we painted at the beginning. This is why we painted it, otherwise we'd be stopping and starting. So that will be now dried, or if it isn't, you'll have to wait a little bit longer. Obviously this frame is pretty square. Again, if it's not and it's slightly out, what you can do is run some tacky glue right the way along this edge, place that and line everything up and attach that down. But like I say, this is square, so I don't need to do that with this one. And then you will need to pop your main frame over the top. So I've popped everything in place. I haven't painted my main frame yet, and obviously you're now on my little shelves, just so you can see a little bit better. I'm thinking I'm going to go pink with this. I'm not quite sure yet, so I don't want to commit. So obviously if you are adamant that you want all yours the same colour, you can obviously go ahead and paint that now, or paint it afterwards like me. It is pretty easy to paint because obviously you've got a big lip to go around. So that part is completely up to you. So this is going to be the next print, which is the shelf. We're going to use our PVA glue and attach it into this corner here. So obviously it's going to overlap this print here. And we're going to align that in there like this. Once that is in place, we're just going to pop this to the side. I'm going to move the camera down and we're going to concentrate on the next piece. The next piece you will need to find is this strip here, which is going to be the front of the counter. You will also need to get 2 small lollipop sticks. As always, we're just going to trim off these rounded edges. And then what we're going to do is flip this way. We're going to take our thin lollipop stick, a small lollipop stick. As you can see, I've already folded mine. I just needed to make sure that the counter did actually sit inside the frame, because I always sort of like have to build these as I'm designing, just to make sure that nothing is out. So what you're going to do is line up your stick to this lip here, and you're going to fold that over. We've built these so many times, and then just squish that down like this. And then taking your other lollipop stick, you're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So you're going to line this up and then flip this over. You should now have 2 guides of where your sticks are going to be placed. So taking one of your lollipop sticks, we are now going to measure it up from the top, as always, to the bottom, make a mark and trim that off. We are then going to get our second lollipop stick and do exactly the same on the other side. Because I just had to delete the last one because I called them SHITs instead of sticks. I was like, you're too sh instead of sticks. Anyway, we're going to carry on. I know you said to add the bloopers in, but I'll probably get flagged for that. So we're going to now use our stronger glue. You can obviously use your PVA glue. I'm just going to grab my tacky glue. This is the tacky glue I'll be using. As always, like I say, you can use your PVA glue. It just takes a little bit longer to dry. So what I'm going to do is attach both sticks to this part here, and then I'll be back. So both of my sticks are now in place. I'm sorry, I keep giggling. Let's just concentrate. So next what we're going to do is grab our paper straw. These do not come in your kits because obviously I never know how long to cut these for you. And I know you've all got these little straws. So what we're going to do is just measure it up along the top as always, and then just trim it off so it sits on the inside part of your lollipop stick. You can then add a blob of glue, glue gun or tacky glue to each end of your straw, so not going on the inner part here. Laying it flat and then just push up your sticks and then let that dry. So we have now built our adorable little counter. So now what I'm going to do is just flip you back up onto the main frame. So your counter should now sit in this corner here. Taking your tacky glue, you're just going to run this along this edge here and this edge here. You can obviously use your PVA glue, but as I always say, you know, it takes a little bit longer to dry. You can then use your thumbs or fingers and then just put some pressure on both ends of your stick, just so it attaches to your frame. Don't worry if your frame looks a little bit wobbly at the top. We're going to put a counter on this in a second. So my tacky glue is still drying, as you can see, and my frame is still a little bit wobbly, my counter should we say. So now what you need to do is grab your larger lollipop stick. This is going to sit perfectly on the top, so no trimming with this part. If you are wanting your counter a different colour, obviously now is the time to paint before you glue it into place. I am going to keep the bare wood. I think it's going to give a nice effect against the pink. So again, that is completely up to you. So what we're going to do now is place our tacky glue on this edge here. We'll just flip you down so you can see. On here, and then just run our tacky glue along this part as well. Now, obviously, when that sits into place, just before I put my tacky glue on, you can then push this frame, your counter, into place, and then push everything down. So obviously all your glue is going to be hidden underneath this stick. So once your counter is in place, we are now going to take 2 large lollipop sticks and create some frames inside this little box here. So as always, you will just need to trim off both rounded edges. Taking your first stick, you're going to place this and push this up along your frame. So you will find a grey border that I've put on as a guide for you. Just makes it easier for you to mark this out. And then you're going to mark where the white line ends. This is going to give you a guide of where your shelf needs to be. You are then going to trim that off, and then you're going to again take your second lollipop stick, push that up along this guide as well, and then mark that on the white line. So once you've measured your 2 shelving, you will then need to add another shelf on this top part. As you can see, it just sits exactly the same as the others, just following that white guide and then trimming it off just before you get to that grey line. So I have attached all 3 of my shelving now with my tacky glue, and they are now dry. So just before we put on the squares, this is the ones that we are going to be using next. Like I say, this part just supports this top piece here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint the outside of my frame. I'm going to go for the pink. So I'm going to paint that and let that dry before I glue this on, because I don't want that hitting this part here and then me having to get obviously paint on this white frame. So I'm going to go ahead now and paint all the outside of my frame in pink, the same pink that I used for the inner part, and then I'll be back. Just put my frame to the side, just letting it dry a little bit more before we carry on with the main frame. So while we're waiting, we are going to be building the other little bits and pieces to go inside. So we're going to start with the slushy machine first. You will find 2 squares. Now you might, obviously these are going to be roughly cut, so you might just have to trim just around the edge with your scissors if need be. And then we've also got the square, the drip tray, and this part as well. So what you'll need to do first is just paint the inside of this, because obviously then you can pop that to the side and let that dry. These are the 2 acrylic paints that I used. It was just dark red, just a standard blue. And then just taking your paintbrush, you're just going to run on the inside of this plastic. Obviously just make sure you've got your red and your blue, depending on which way you've cut your square. And then obviously place your colours inside and then pop that to the side to let that dry. This is the one that I did previously. I like it so it's sort of like see-through like this, but obviously you can go ahead and do a few more coats if you wanted to. Now you will find a small lollipop stick, just trim off the end as always. Taking this print here, what you're going to do is just fold your lollipop stick, just where that join is there. It should more or less line up to the width of your stick, and then you're going to fold that over. You're then going to do the same on the other side. So you'll now have 2 little lips like this. You're then going to measure up your lollipop stick, mark it where it ends there and trim that off. Do exactly the same on the other side. Then you're going to take your tacky glue and glue each one of these sticks on both sides. So then it should look something like this. And then just like the counter, I've just trimmed a little bit of straw, just put my glue gun just on either side of the straw, just to strengthen up this part as well. So let me just pop this over here. So now you need to find your little drip tray. You're going to use your tacky glue. Now if you're wanting to paint this drip tray, you can paint it now, because obviously this bare wood is going to be exposed. I'm going to keep mine just so it matches my counter, but you might want to run some silver paint or some white, whatever colour you want. So I would suggest painting this first, especially the edge. And then you're going to tacky glue this on your stick. And then you're going to trim off the excess with your scissors. So you should now have a drip tray mounted onto some little lollipop stick. So now we're going to go back to this piece. and hopefully yours are now dry. So there is a white border inside here. I'm just going to run my tacky glue just along this middle part, placing that in the middle and squeezing it down. So obviously, you know, you can run all the way around with your tacky glue if you want to. You can use your sellotape. I just think, obviously, because this is going to be glued onto the back piece, you know, there's no point going all the way around getting glue everywhere. But like I say, it's completely up to you. Obviously, it will dry clear. So I'm just going to take that white guide and then just use this part here. So I'm just going to attach that now and then let that dry. So once that is in place, depending on obviously how big you have cut your squares, these are the squares that I used for the last prototype. So the back piece was slightly smaller, so my squares will be, you know, trimmed down a little bit more than yours. However, if you have trimmed yours down more or less the same size as mine, there is, you know, some excess at the top if you want to cut that off. Obviously yours might not need cutting it off, so I'm just going to trim that white piece off there with my scissors. That looks like this. It's just neatened up the top piece. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this little part that we built. Oh, got some glue on that earlier, and we're going to use our tacky glue. We're going to run it along both edges of the sticks. You are then going to line this up, making sure that you push it up to the top so your little square sit flush at the top. You're going to line it up with the edge on this side, and then once you've done that, it will line up perfectly on the other side. So you can, you know, you only have to really concentrate on one side with this because it will fit. And then obviously as it's drying, just make sure that you've pushed it up just so your squares sit flat on the top. So as always, I will be using this tacky glue. I'm just going to use a little cocktail stick and just tap it along this edge. Wipe off any of my glue. You know, if I get any overspill, I'll just wipe it off with my finger, and then I'm going to let that dry. Pop you on my cutting mat just in case. Like I say, it just depends how wide your squares are. I have got a little bit of excess either side of mine. Now my tray is in place. Can you see that little white piece? So I'm just going to take my craft knife, which is covered in brown paint, and I'm just going to slice that off. You can obviously use your scissors, and then I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. I've just trimmed off the corners. Just make sure that your tacky glue is dry before you start trimming anything off, otherwise, you know, it might start sliding about. So we're just going to pop this to the side. We don't need our drip tray just yet because we're going to glue that on afterwards when we glue this onto our frame. So now we're going to do the little candy floss machine. So you will see where you need to fold for this part. So just trimming off again, as always, just your stick. You're just going to fold this over, do the same on the other side, and then we're going to trim these pieces off and then attach these with our tacky glue. So let me just do that now, like this. Obviously it's still wet. And then what we're going to do is flip this way. So there is a couple of, let me just pop that down there a second. There's a couple of options. Obviously this is a bowl. So if you're wanting to put candy floss inside your bowl, like I am going to do, you're going to need to trim off this part here, this little lip. If you just want it as a bowl and you're not adding candy floss, obviously you can leave it as it is. So that is completely up to you. So let me just show you which bits you need to trim. It just makes the bowl look open rather than, you know, at the moment, if I was to put some candy floss in here, it wouldn't look like it was in the machine. Does that make sense? I hope so. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim this edge off here. And now we've got an open bowl. So when that sits, I can now put my candy floss inside here when we mount that later on. So that is that for, that is it, sorry, should we say, for this part here. Next in your kit you will find 3 little pots. These are going to be for our candy flosses. So you will just need to just cut with your scissors the plastic pieces. Don't have to get too close just yet. So just separate these. Let me just bring my cutting mat in and bring you up just so I can show you how to trim off the little plastic pieces. So just flip your lid open, lay it flat on your cutting mat. Just try and get you as close as I can. And then just taking your craft knife, all you're going to do is just put some pressure on the side and slice it down. And then you're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So if you are putting handles on, these will be your guides where your handles are going to go. If you're not going to put any handles on, then it doesn't matter because you can't really see them anyway. Like this one, if you just missed a little bit, just go back over with your craft knife and then just slice that down again. And they're as easy as that to trim off. So I've just trimmed all three off for now, so I'm just going to pop that back on my tray and just get rid of this mat. So the other parts you can trim are these little clip pieces at the front if you want to. Again, depending on obviously how deep your shelving is going to be. I did trim this piece off on mine, just using my craft knife, and the back piece as well. That just gives me just a circle bucket. And I've put obviously the clip part to the back, so you're not going to see that when it's glued onto the frame. So you can trim that off as well. Like I say, you can decide all this once your frame is on. That is the little stickers that you'll get as well. So you'll just need to peel those off and stick those to the front. So let's just discuss the handles. I would probably wait and put the handles on afterwards once everything is in place and you've had to play about where you want things to go. Only because if your shelving is, not deep enough, your handles, you're not going to be able to fit your buckets inside your little shelving because your handles might get in the way. Obviously, if you're going to hang them on the outside of your frame, then that won't be a problem. So the first method you can use is using a glue gun. I've just done this so they can dry. And then just taking some greaseproof paper, just do a little strip. Wait for it to dry with your glue gun. And then what you can do is just use your scissors. I'll just get my scissors. Trim the edges off. So just do, a couple of long strips. And then the rough part is going to go on the inner part. And then this is obviously flexible with it being a glue stick. That is the first method for your handles. And then what you will do then is use your glue gun and attach these to the side if you want to. So that is your first method. The second method is to get one of these little caps that come off your drink bottles. Where the screw lid goes, you've always got like a little ring. This was just off a juice bottle. So anything white, again, you can trim this. I would obviously trim off this little piece here as well. And again, you can measure it to your bucket and attach that. And then a huge shout out to the lovely Jo M, who also come up with a fabulous idea of using the Ziploc bag, the plastic part that you can trim off, and again, bend that around your bucket. So what I've done is I've filled my buckets up. I'm not going to add my handles just yet. Like I say, I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to put the handles on mine yet or whether I just want them stacked inside my shelving. There is a tutorial on the candy floss on here on my YouTube and also on my TikTok under Crafted Delights with a 0. But because these just went in the little buckets, I did use some coloured cotton wool balls and just separated these. And then obviously you'll get 3 little stickers as well that you just need to peel off and place on top of your buckets. The next part of the build will be an option, so you've either selected this or you haven't. I've just brought the frame back into place. Look how gorgeous that pink looks. Just to discuss this with you. Obviously I will explain this as well on the pre-orders. So I have put the the pink border here. Obviously the candy machine is going to sit up here, and then you might want to just add in 2 little shelving for all your bits and pieces. So if that is the case, this option you obviously haven't selected, so you can do that. However, I'm going to design a pick and mix to go in this corner. So like I say, if you haven't selected this option, then you can skip this part. So your pick and mix counter will obviously include all your prints, which you're going to see shortly. And then you will just get a plastic square like this. Just trim this top part off. And then just taking your scissors, just trim all the way around the edge. And then what you're going to do is push that inside your frame and then just keep trimming down until you get the right dimensions. Now, obviously, with mine that I've trimmed off, I literally just cut just around this square here. I have had a play about already with the sprinkles for the glue. As you can see, this is the part that I trimmed off, and that fits perfectly inside here. So what you might want to do is, I'm not going to push that in because my sprinkles are still a little bit wet. It's just sort of like trim off the excess first, place it inside your frame, and then just keep trimming it round. But you know, if everything has gone to plan and your frame is not further out than mine, you will end up just trimming just around these cubes with your scissors. And then keep obviously all your excess bits because it will come in handy for some other bits. And like say, you'll also get 6 little mini bags of sprinkles. I'm just waiting for my bags to put the sprinkles in, so hopefully they'll be here tomorrow. So everything that we use on here is obviously included with your extras. That's enough waffling on. Let's get started. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to get yourself some little pots. You will also need to get your PVA glue. I will be using clear, however, you can just use your normal PVA glue as well. And then you will also just need to get a little stick, I don't know, a mixing stick, cocktail stick, whatever you prefer to work with. You can now empty your little bags of sprinkles just inside some shot glasses. It's just going to be the easiest method to add our PVA glue. So this is the one I'm going to be using, the clear PVA glue. And what you're going to do, I'll show you one and then I'll mix the other ones up. Is you're just going to put some clear just inside your sprinkles and then get your stick, your chosen mixing stick, and then just make sure that these are all coated with your PVA glue. Clear glue for this would be better. I know the PVA glue does dry clear, but just in case, you know, sometimes if you get too much glue on, it still looks a little bit white. So just make sure all your sprinkles are covered, and then going to do exactly the same with the other 4, and then I'll be back. All my sprinkles are now covered in my PVA glue, as you can see. So now it's completely up to you which ones you want to put in each squares. So we're just going to fill them out. It might be worth just getting a larger stick. Let me just grab one. Just a cocktail stick, because I think otherwise I'm going to be forever trying to scoop that out with a little cocktail stick. So just put a load on your stick. I'm going to go up here with this one. And then we're just going to place this inside our square. And then obviously you're going to fill out each square with your sprinkles. Just keep tapping it down just so it gets on the front part. I'll show you this one, and then I'll wipe this stick and then carry on with my others. So it doesn't matter what it looks like from the back, because obviously that is going to go onto our frame, so don't worry about that. Just keep it away, you know, from any of the edges, because obviously we're going to be gluing that in later on. So you can flip this forward and have a look. You can obviously push this down if you want it looking a little bit empty. Bearing in mind we have got a strip to go over the top of this as well, so you might want to just fill out your whole squares. Oh, we've got a blob dropped out because it's still drying. There we go. So just keep tapping all these in. Like I say, you don't have to fill up the whole back, you're not going to see it, it's just visually from the front really. And then once you put all these in place, you can then work all the way down with your other sprinkles. So I'm not going to flip you over, but like I say, just keep having a look. Obviously the sides you're not going to see because that's going to go all along the counter, and this strip is going to go over the top once we finish. So you might want to just keep referring back to these little strips just to see how much sweeter you've exposed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill out the rest of my little squares with the rest of my sprinkles. I'm just going to wipe this off with a tissue, and then I'm going to carry on filling out my squares. So I've now filled out all my squares. As you can see, everything is still drying. It'll probably take about, I don't know, 45 minutes or so to dry. This is more or less dry. You can use your UV resin if you wanted to. Obviously, it's a more expensive product. Do exactly the same method. Pour that in your pot. Mix it all, you know, coat all your sprinkles, and then obviously set that with your UV torch. But because the PVA glue is really cheap and really effective, as you can see at the bottom, I probably wouldn't use that product. But again, it's completely up to you. So I'm going to pop this to the side, let this dry, and then we're going to go back onto the main frame. We are now back onto the main frame. My frame is now dry, just to refresh, just in case you can't remember what colour I used. It is blowing a gale. I'm chucking it down. As always, every time I film, I'm sure it's always raining. This was from Art Studio, from the range, just a standard pink. It's only had one coat. You know, you might want to go ahead and do a few more coats, but I do like the sort of like bare wood effect that comes through. So what we're going to do now with the shelving, you need to find the grey part. This is going to go to the right hand side. We're going to run the tacky glue along all 4 pieces. So this tacky glue here, we're going to end on this grey part here. We're then going to place this over the top. So if you've gone slightly out with your shelving and you've got some, you know, bare wood exposed, don't panic, because we do cover that later on with a strip. So I'm just going to attach all that to this back part. So just to show you, I am just tapping. Obviously you are best on a flat surface. I've just popped you up just to show you. Just keep tapping your finger just along where your glue is. Any glue, you can get a little cotton bud and wipe it off. I always just tend to use my fingers. Like I say, it will dry clear. So you will have some shelving exposed here. So you can now get a large lollipop stick. Just trim off the end as always. And then you can place this up to the top, just where your frame ends. Trim off the bottom part where your counter finishes. I don't think I'm going to put this on mine, to be fair, but it's completely up to you. I just want to show you. And then what you can do then is just attach that to the side, just by using your glue gun. You don't have to go right the way up, just where it sort of like curves round like this. So you can actually box it in if you want to, but like I say, I'm not going to bother with that, but I just want to show you that just in case you want to do it. So now we're going to finish off the rest of these shelves, and then obviously that's going to give you a guide of how big your rock needs to be, how big, you know, your extra bits and pieces need to go in. So let me just grab those. So these are the 2 strips. So obviously your lollipop one, that's what I said, if you've missed your misguided your shelf. I have done these wider just in case that happened. So, you know, if this frame ends up down here, it doesn't matter. Just try and line it up the best you can, you know, if your shelves are out. So that's going to sit on here. So I've measured this up to this white part to this white part. So you can use your glue gun for this if you want. Again, tacky glue if you want to slide it about a little bit more. Just to pop it in place, it's a lot easier, rather than committing with your glue gun and not getting it quite square. So I will be using my tacky glue for this, and then that way I can just sort of like slide it up and down. I will literally just run my tacky glue just along this back part here, align that up there, slide it about to where I want it, and then attach that. And then your other part is this one, which is the mix and match rock, which goes with this print here. And again, it's exactly the same size. It'll fit just within these white borders here. So let me just attach these with my tacky glue. My tacky glue is in place, and again, I'm always jumping in. Just use this part of your finger. It's a lot easier. Line it up, because obviously I can still slide mine about. And then just, again, on a flat surface, just run your finger just along, just so it sort of like adheres to the back. Otherwise, you know, if you don't get it flat enough, your labels might ripple a little bit. So just make sure that you've got no glue on your finger as well when you do this part. and then just run that straight over the top, and then that will flatten your signs. This is looking super duper cute, as always. The next part we're going to add is our little slushy machine, so that should all be dry now. We did discuss this on live. It looks, you know, I moved a sign out the way, so you obviously can go here. Now, if you haven't gone for the pick and mix option, you can obviously have it down here. And then obviously put your shelving underneath, and then have your little candy floss machine up here. So like I say, just have a play about. I know I want mine here, so I'm just going to align that. And then once I'm happy with the placement, what I'm going to do is run my tacky glue all the way along the back, and then I'm going to press this using my frame flat. Obviously don't put too much pressure on these because they're in a little plastic. You don't want indents for your fingers. Lay that flat, and then attach all this to the back. So I'm going to run my fingers obviously along this part here, and we're going to attach that there. Once that's in place, obviously I kept mine bare wood. I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to paint this or not. You've obviously might have already gone ahead and painted yours. So this is going to sit now perfectly on the bottom here, just with some tacky glue. I'm just going to have a look at mine because I think I'm going to put a white border on mine. Now it's on my shelf. I know it blends in. I just want it to stand out a little bit more. So obviously you can skip this part if you've already painted yours and gone ahead of time. So I'm just going to paint just with a thin brush, just some white acrylic paint just along there. And then I'm going to use my tacky glue and then just align that, just pushing it up to the back part of our little machine. So my drip tray is now glued into place. So now we're going to concentrate on this little square here. So if you haven't selected the pick and mix, this is an option for you as well. So your candy floss machine should sit nicely just along this pink border here. You can obviously add a small lollipop stick and just trim that off and add a little shelf. You can then add another little shelf along here. Again, just measuring it from your counter to your frame. And then your little candy floss machine will sit up here, and then underneath you can put all your little bits and pieces if that is the option you have chosen. But obviously we're going to be adding the pick and mix next. So this should be more or less dry now. So what we're going to do is place this in here. So as you place this in this corner, it's so cute. Everything's cute. I don't want to put any tacky glue along this edge. I just don't want it spilling over the top. So you can add just a little bit of glue on the bottom part here, because obviously that's going to sit in the lip. And then just run your tacky glue just along this edge, and then just stop at this top square. So we're just going around here. There's no point putting it in the middle because obviously it dips in, so this will not touch your frame. So once all your tacky glue is in place, so a little blob, you know, at the back here and here, right the way along, just missing these top squares, you are then going to push this inside your frame. So because we are putting our little candy floss machine on top of our little pick and mix, we just need to strengthen up this. Obviously it doesn't look right with just that sat on the top. I've already pre-cut this. I'm going to explain how I did it, just so the video isn't like 2 hours long. So this is a large lollipop stick. So you will just need to measure it from the inner part of your frame to the end of your little pick and mix display, and then just trim that off. Again, you can paint this. I'm going to keep all mine bare wood because this is going to sit on the top, and by the time I've got my little sticker on, you probably won't see it anyway. But again, it's completely up to you if you want to go ahead now and just paint your little shelf. Once you have your size, just run your tacky glue right the way along your stick, and then you're going to place this on the top of your plastic. My tacky glue is still drying, as you can see. Obviously we don't see this lip, so the next part you'll need to find is this pick and mix sign. You're going to run your tacky glue along the back. You can cover the whole thing, it's completely up to you. I'm just going to sort of like concentrate in the middle. And then what you're going to do is align this to this part of your frame here. Pull that up slightly, just so it's overlapping your shelving. You know, rather than sort of like getting it flat, it looks a little bit better at the top here. So I'm just going to attach that there. So I've just popped my sign into place. Like I say, I've just left a little bit of a gap just on this top part here. So the last part of this little pick and mix stand is the 2 stripes. I haven't put any wording on this because obviously I didn't know what placement you was going to put all your little bits and pieces. And to be fair, I wasn't quite sure what to call them all. So this is going to sit on here, again, using our tacky glue. And then the other part is going to sit on here. So I've just placed my 2 strips. It might look a bit off centre to you. It's just the way my table goes down. Obviously, because we've used our tacky glue, you can then just get a dry brush, have a play about where you like these, just slide them up and down. If it ends up on your plastic, just take your brush and just wipe off any excess glue that you have. And then we're going to let that dry. So whilst this is drying, we're now going to go back onto our little candy floss machine. Again, we didn't strengthen up the inner part. You might want to, but to be fair, it's quite small, so I don't think you're going to need it. We're going to run our tacky glue along both edges. And we're going to place this on the top of our pick and mix. And then we're going to push this into place. You might hear my cricket going in the background. I'm just designing just a couple of stars to go on this, which we're going to attach in a second. So obviously once we've pushed this in, just get a dry brush and then just run up along any edges, wiping off any excess, especially when you've sort of like squeezed it. Putting the straw into place, just keep its shape. So it's completely up to you if you want to do that. But if you're like me and haven't, you can use a dry brush. Just wipe off any excess glue and then obviously let that dry. So this is what all the noise was about. You've now got 2 more little stars included in your pick and mix set. So if you haven't gone for the pick and mix, these will not be included. I've just used my tacky glue, attached it to the corner as you can see, and in the middle. You might want to just do one in the edge and then keep this to go on your shelving later on. It's completely up to you. So once you're happy, obviously if you haven't gone for the pick and mix, you will have some shelving and your little candy floss machine will be further down. So we're now going to go back onto our shelving because hopefully everything is now dried, and we're going to start gluing other bits and pieces into this shelf. So I've just taken 3 of my little candy tubs. This is the placement that I want. I haven't glued anything together yet. Obviously if you put handles already on yours, you will only get 2 in this little square if this is where you're putting yours. So my little tubs are now in place with my tacky glue. I'm just going to use my dry brush and just wipe off any excess. And then I'm going to take my little star and I'm going to use my tacky glue and attach that down here. So I did have a play about. You will get 2 of these rings and also 2 of these little hook and eyes, I think that's what you call them. I've just mounted this onto wire and just used my glue gun and attached 3 little candy flosses. I've also just attached my candy floss and just a little cocktail stick just inside my machine. I have then glue gunned 2 little dummies on here. My 4 bottles, so I've done 2 down here and 2 up here, my little sweetie bag, and obviously the rock that we created on live. These are candles. However, I haven't had time to do the twist effect. So if you do want to see, you know, how to roll the Fimo for the twist effect for your rock or your lollipops, just let me know in the comments below and I will do a separate video. You will also get a strip that goes along the top, which is the perfect size for your frame. So I've just used my tacky glue. And then I've attached my little donut sign over here and over here. So you'll get 2 of those. And the little star donuts, you will also get 2 of those little prints as well. So I've gone just on the top of that sign and just at the bottom, and then added the last print with the little lollipops on the left hand side. So this is the finished result. I cannot wait to see your creations. Goodbye everybody.